The traditional concept of web development from 10 years ago was page-oriented. When you build a website or an application, you would think in terms of the pages, how many pages you need, how they should relate to each other, etc. Let's move this mouse. Okay, every single page may have its own CSS, JS dependencies or global dependencies depending on features and functionality. So finally, the page may end up with something like this. Like this. Yeah. This solution is hard to scale because loading too many scripts can cause a network bottleneck. The second option is to use a big JS file containing all your project code, but this leads to problems in scope, size, readability, and maintainability. And when you need to deploy the app, you have to copy all of the HTML, JS, CSS files to a production environment, right? Which might be dozens or even hundreds of files. And lastly, to host all of your application files, you need a server, which can manage the folder structure, handle routes, and so on. Now we are in a component-based web development era. As you can see here, each component is a piece of UI. We can build these components in isolation and then put them together to create complex UIs. Some benefits are it allows for code reuse. It ensures UX consistency across a portfolio. It is state-driven. And then we package the application with the help of bundlers such as Webpack, Parcel, Fusebox, Rollup, etc. And those bundlers are included out of the box in JavaScript frameworks. What's common among these frameworks is that the bulk of the work is in the browser. Now, a few years ago, Jed Smith at a Brooklyn meetup explained his vision of a next generation UI framework. So here, Jed Smith says, the apps we write are directed graphs, but the runtime we have is a tree. So that's the DOM. So writing an app should be just writing a graph. And the compiler should be just, would figure out where the dipoles are and rig up the DOM event code to make that relationship consistent across the states. Then there was this smart guy, goes by the name of Rich Harris. Listening to Jed, suddenly he had this epiphany. Frameworks are not tools for organizing your code. They are tools for organizing your mind. They often help you write better code, yes, but their true value is in the way they help you structure your code and express them. So what if a framework wasn't a thing that run in a browser at all? What if it was a compiler? My name is Devlin Duldulao. I'm a senior consultant at Inmera and an Auth0 ambassador, Microsoft MVP. I'm here to talk about Svelte, cybernetically enhanced web apps. So what is Svelte? Svelte is a radical new approach to building user interfaces. Whereas frameworks like React and Vue do the bulk of their work in the browser, Svelte shifts that work into a compile step that happens when you build your app. And rather than applying techniques like virtual DOM diffing, Svelte writes code that surgically updates the DOM when the state of your app changes. Svelte is written by Rich Harris of the New York Times in late 2016. Now Svelte is in version 3. So how does Svelte work? Svelte has taken inspiration from Observable in the way it runs your code, But first, let me step back and ask you, what is reactive programming? To make it short, reactive programming has key similarities with observer pattern, commonly used in object-oriented. I'm assuming you have encountered the pub/sub design pattern at some point. To differentiate observer from publish, subscribe, observers are aware of the subject. Also, the subject maintains a record of the observers, whereas in publisher, subscriber, they don't need to know each other. Here's a spreadsheet. Reactive programming, what makes a spreadsheet so intuitive? When you make a change in a cell, the cells that depended on it change too, right? This is what Svelte does by default. Svelte brings reactivity to JavaScript itself. So how does Svelte work? So simple here. You have you write a normal JavaScript code, but you need to follow a few certain syntax. And then when you run the Svelte compiler over your code, it compiles that code to optimize runtime instructions. You are probably saying right now, is this important? Pre-compilation can significantly lower the overhead of a framework. Now take a look at this. Svelte did away with this typical scenario because apparently there's a performance penalty with frameworks that don't pre-compile. This is due to compilation translation that happens on the client side before any of the actual app code can be run. Now let's review how Angular, React, and Vue can detect changes in their app state. Here's Angular's dirty checking. One of the performance characteristics of this is that it is bound by the cost of watcher computations. Here's React's reconciliation. Performance characteristics bound by render diffing costs of dirty subtree. And here's Vue, virtual DOM plus dependency tracking, performance characteristics, balance update efficiency. Then here, Svelte has managed to bypass the virtual DOM. Diffing is not free. You can't apply changes to the real DOM without first comparing the new virtual DOM with the previous snapshot. It has unnecessary computation. So how does Svelte do change detection? Svelte does change detection differently. Svelte component code will be compiled into a vanilla JavaScript with code detection already in place. And here's an example. This is almost exactly the update code that Svelte generates. Unlike traditional UI frameworks, Svelte is a compiler that knows at build time how things could change in your app rather than waiting to do the work at runtime. It generates code like this. So it knows that the only thing that could ever change is the age. So this is the whole update function it generates for the piece of template. There's no unnecessary work. Svelte is able to infer a lot more about your intention or what your components are trying to do. Pre-compilation and avoiding virtual DOM, what makes Svelte performant when it comes to memory allocation. Here's a JS framework benchmark. Svelte is the first green column, followed by Vue, React, and Angular. It shows that Svelte is the performance winner among the four, but take it with a grain of salt. There might be implementation inaccuracy here, things like development versus production mode, not applying framework-specific optimizations, and unintentional errors. So continuing. And now you only ship the code your app really needs, right? Here. Now let me show you how small Svelte can be in comparison with other frameworks. Now this is another benchmark this time from Medium. The real world comparison of front-end frameworks 2020 goes they've used conduits, real-world app repositories. Real-world meaning they do CRUDs, send requests to backend, and has authentication. What you need to know here is that the smaller the file, the faster the download, and less to parse. So yes, Svelte can produce extremely lightweight code, but why should you care? You should care because it can be extremely fast. It uses very little memory. It can be used on embedded devices, which you'll see in a bit. In Adi Osmani's presentation, he talks about keeping your JavaScript bundles small, especially for mobile devices. Why? Again, why? Because small bundles improve download speed, lower memory usage, and reduce CPU costs. On mobile, you'll want to ship much less, primarily because of network speeds, but also to keep plain memory usage low. He also mentioned that JavaScript execution time is important for phones with slow CPUs. Then you also have to consider, due to differences in CPU, GPU, and thermal throttling, there are huge disparities between the performance of high-end and low-end phones. This matters for the performance of JavaScript, as execution is CPU bound. Therefore, in a browser, that compiled code executes and then renders the user interface. Shifting the load to compile step can also be seen in other frameworks nowadays. Good example here is Stencil of Ionic and Solid.js of Ryan Carniato. So here we're now the live coding demo, but here's the commands in how to get started with Svelte. You have npx digit Svelte JS template /template, and then the name of the project. Go to that project, npm install, and then npm run dev. Now, I've already done this, and here it is. Here's the project. Here's the node modules. You can see I already run the npm install. So here's the default file structures in Svelte. I think this is, yeah, this is better. We have plenty of rooms here. Okay, so let's check it out one by one. Beginning maybe from here, route.config.js. What is this? If you're familiar with Webpack, this is exactly what it does. So it's just it bundles your CSS and JavaScript files, and you can add some sub plugins here. Default plugins here: live reload, resolve svelte, as you can see here. And if you have CSS preprocessor here, you can also configure it here. And by the way, the creator of rollup config, I mean the rollup library, this module bundler is also the creator of Svelte, Rich Harris. And yeah, readme package JSON. So let's check this out. You have the scripts here. You have build, dev, start, and serve. This is the serve CLI to run your Svelte application. And yeah, and the rest, well, actually, dev dependencies here. You have the rollup, the bundler, plugin common.js that resolves that, plugin node resolve, the rollup itself, live reload, Svelte serve, and the Svelte compiler. Like JSON, git ignore, source. So yeah, what else? Let's check this out. Public, you have the index. So this is, you can convert it to SPA. You have the script here. And yeah, inside this source folder, app Svelte. Okay, we'll come back here later. Let's switch over to main.js first. And you can see here, it's creating an instance of app, the root component. And we have props here. Yeah, name props with the value world. So this is the value world that you'll see in the hello world of this when we run this later. Yeah, exporting the app. And then here's the root component. We have the script here. So this is where you write your logic. This is logic. The styling here. This is scope here. And then the template. So if you've tried the Vue.js, as you can see, it's similar to Vue.js. The difference is this part here. You can do this. You can have these children here for the template, and it will just work. As far as I can remember, you cannot do this in Vue.js. But anyway, let's run this Svelte application here. Let's move it here. npm run dev. Rollup is running, bundling everything, all the files, and then yeah, you can see here the URL localhost 5000. Let's go here, localhost 5000.
Yeah, it looks like Devlin dropped, guys. We just have to wait and see when he's back.
Okay, so vim run. Okay, so yeah, I guess this is it. For some reason, this keyboard won't act accordingly. npm run dev. Okay, so we're back. Yeah, so now we're trying to run this Svelte again application, and let's go back here. It's localhost 5000. Okay, so yeah, hello world. Let's try this large. Let's zoom this one here. Let's move it here. And so you can see it also about this one. Oops. Yeah, side by side, right? I just move it here. And as well as this one. This one doesn't belong here. So yeah, this is gonna be easier. You can view the code and you can also see the UI here. So yeah, we still have plenty of time. Hello world. Yeah, the hello h1 is again this is the template part. A name. So if you're familiar with props in React or in Vue.js, it's just this is passing down the value from its parent, right? This is the root component, but the main.js is instantiating this app component, and here, as you can see, it also including these props here with this object here. So that's how it gets its name here with this world. So hello world, and then yeah. So typical JS framework. So let's try to delete this first. This is annoying. Here, save it. It'll end up this, right? So I guess we'll just delete everything here. So how do you create another component or another file and then reuse it or import it here? Okay, so let's try to create an Svelte component. Let's name it title Svelte. So this is the format of the extension, dot Svelte. And here, so you can just basically write h1 here. Let's say hello NDC or NDC Sydney NDC. I can spell it right. Yeah, we have h1 NDC Sydney. So we're back here. Let's switch over to app Svelte. How do you import that? It's simple. You just import and then you can name it whatever you want. Say from, as you can see here, title. It's not giving me IntelliSense here, but yep. And yeah, after importing it, you can now technically use it here. Should be able to see. Yeah, and the Sydney. So yeah, that's simple. Simple because I'd say I can compare it with another framework. I'm a Vue.js developer. Normally, you would have this summary here, like you have to register the component, this object component, to be able to use it. But here in Svelte, you can just, right off the bat, use the component that you just imported, use it here, and it just work. So that's how we would create a reusable component and import it, right? So what about creating, let's say, an if-else condition or something that you can iterate or loop? So, okay, so here, let's create another file. Let's name it h is Velt. And let's see, this could be, let's say, array and then be able to if each. Okay, script again. Let's write the script because that's where you should write your JavaScript. Let's say let my array, and then say here. So this is how you would write if condition. So curly braces, pound sign, and then if, and then say if this is true, like array dot length, and if it's not empty, basically show this. But this is the each part. We will be going to map the objects inside the array. So each mention the array, and then as. So here you can name your object. Let's just name it for now. Let's just obj or obj, and yeah. Then here to close that slash and then each. So let's also close this if here. So it wouldn't yell at us. Yeah. So you have this green squiggly, meaning you have to put something here. Yeah, but this is not an error. This is just like a warning. So let's try uh, obj and then say ID. You know what? You can access also the index here of this object. So we can use this. This is also something you can do in Vue and our other frameworks. So here we're just going to probably +1 here. Obj or 1 plus I plus 1. So just a numbered list, not an ordered list. And then dot here, then here will be the object and say name. But we haven't created that yet. We will create that later. And yeah, and then miss something here. It's key. And this key will track the object that should re-render. So it can be performant. Doesn't have to re-render all the objects inside the list. Let's say it has hundreds of objects, and there's only one object that needs to change. Now, this is the way of it's about tracking the object inside the array, and it doesn't have to be the ID. It just has to be anything that's unique the object. So now we have that. So if each, what else? Maybe we can also add something here like else. So with else, starts with the colon, curly braces again, then colon, and then else. Then we can say empty here, like so. Right? Yeah. So we have let here my array. So the idea here is to pass something, pass an array to this my array here. But how would you do that? This is scope here, only here. You need an access modifier, right? In Svelte, you can do that like that, just like in other programming language. But in Svelte, it uses export to to create a public modifier here. Now this is visible in other components. So let's switch over to app.svelte. We can import that. Oh, it gives us IntelliSense now. Yeah, each, say here, each, and each here. Now we need to pass something here. We need to pass a value to the each props, which is my array. So my array, as you can see, it passed something here. So yeah, we can build it here, the array. Let's say just arrays value. I cannot think of anything here. Let's just for now just use two objects. It needs to have an ID, right? Let's say just one ID here. Two, also name. So we're using name here. Carl. Name here could be just Richard. Yeah. I'm a fan of .NET Rocks, by the way. So Carl and Richard here. Sorry, guys. Yeah, and then passing it here. So save. And now we have an error. And this is how you would debug in Svelte. So this is something you can also take away from this session. So it has, yeah, like this kind of error. Property length undefined. So we're passing here arrays value like here. I'm just stepping back. No, probably it says here it's read property length of undefined. So let's jump back to here. My array should be right, and here my array length.
But I need to remove the curly braces around arrays value.
Arrays value, okay. Sometimes you have here rib array. Sometimes array, my array, length of undefined. Okay. Now this should work because this is gonna treat it like a literal string. Sometimes when you're just doing something, you get blinded by ID. Yeah, I guess. Okay, so object ID. Yeah, that would be it. Name. Each array is object. Mm-hmm. Like, let's say people here. I wouldn't change it, but doesn't matter even if I convert it to const array. Type error. Am I a victim of another length spelling here? Export people left. I just I just tested it an hour ago. It's working. The true. Although we cannot use this. That's weird. Why would you do this? And this is a something new in JavaScript. This weird. Like check if it should go here. Actually, even if this is false, it should go here empty. It shouldn't throw. Or maybe I'm using here like H. So no. No. This is it. Which, but anyway, yeah, this is something that I haven't expected. Yeah, by the way, this is something new in JavaScript in ES 2020. I guess this is the nullable operator here, chain nullable. But anyway, yeah, we saw it's working. That like honestly, I tried this an hour ago. It works, and then now it's not. Yeah. So and this is in it. Let's just remove this dev tool here. We have car recharge. This is how it works. Yeah, that's how you would write a conditional here, if using this pound sign, and then slash, and but for the else, should write prefix it with colon instead, and for the for each, just each, you know, pound again, and then this slash here. Okay, so what else can we do here? I can do a sample of form. I can, like write an input here or bind something. Yeah, so let's try that. Let's form and then Svelte. So again, script. So what can we put here? Let's export again, or expose this. Let's say first name, and for now, just set it to empty. Maybe an H2 here. Let's say just a welcome here, and then this will be the part for the first name, right? First name. And yeah, so this part, let's say input. Yeah, they don't have to close it like that. This would work. Then a value, right? Say first name. For now, it's empty. Let's import that so we can see it here, the UI. Import form. There we go. Form, say, yeah. And let's close this. We're also done with this one. So when I write something like this and save it, now you have this binded here, this value binded to the value of input, but it's just one way, right? Meaning from your JavaScript to your UI. How do you do a two-way data binding? So there's a directive here in Svelte called just bind, and yeah, that would create a two-way data binding now. I should be able to edit it. This is useful when you're updating something like having that date form or edit form. So yeah, just like I would compare it with another with Vue again or Angular, where you just need one line of code. So this is totally different if you're working with React. There's a lot of code that you have to write first before you have that two-way data binding and that with event while you're hitting your keys on your keyboard. So yeah, concise, small code. So there's also another thing here in Svelte. There's a class directive that you can use, but let's try to add for something here. Let's say welcome, and then style here. Let's maybe just color orange red. So we have that style orange red. Now there's a class directive here that you can use. So let's say this welcome here, this class will trigger if the first name is true, or this part here is true. So this class directive checks if this thing is, it should return a Boolean, either false or true. If this returns true, let's say first name is true, then the welcome class should work or should activate. But if this is empty, that should disable it. So yeah, just a sample of some directives that Svelte use here, as you can see. Just pure HTML, pure style here. You can copy from other from your old websites and just bring it here. So basically, that's it. And what else can we do here? We can also do some like computation here. So in Svelte, there's this destiny operator that we call. But before that, let's create another file. Let's name it computed. Is Svelte. Let's close this first. We still have 10 minutes. It's okay. Yeah, I think we need to bring it here right away so we can see some changes. Computed, and yeah, it can stay here. So a good example of that computation, and maybe along that way, I can also show you this lifecycle hook. So this is the component did mount or ng on it in Angular or mounted in Vue.js. So here in this build, it has on mount. So the use of this is most of the time if you just gonna send an HTTP request or backend right before your application gets rendered. This is where you going to use it. So now let's say we have food here, and we have rent. So just read 0, and we have this on mount here. So we can assign values here by directly mutating it. Let's say 10 for the food, and then for the rent will be just 1,000. And yeah, so what's that about again? The destiny operator is something like this. It's just this is something that always available in JavaScript, but it's about hijack it because it's not using it in a particular way. Then you'll also be, if you remember, jQuery also using this. So yeah, it's there, and Svelte is using it. That's just how Svelte using it. On now, let's say we define total, like let's say expense, and say food here plus rent. So this is now reactive because of this. Now we can do something like this here, like let's say total expense, right? Say dollars here, $sign total expense. Yep. And then after this, maybe we can add some button here. Say this is increase, and we can just copy this. Be really quick, and could be just lesson here. So for the button, as soon as you start typing on, you get all these events here on blur, on click. Yeah, that would That's what we need here. And to trigger that, curly braces and this arrow function here. And we'll just, for now, just food, say plus 10 for the increase. Sure if you can see it. Then let's just do it again here. Yeah, just to render it. Probably here, say also, yeah, food will be, yeah. It's total. Sorry about that. And then now it's reactive. Thank you for mentioning that. So yeah, with this destiny operator, this is now reactive. Everything, anytime that this food or rent change, it automatically also change. Fancy, right? Because in other frameworks, or I would mention again React, but don't get me wrong, I'm a React developer. There's a lot of acrobatic ways to do this in React. It's a lot of code, but here in Svelte, as you can see, it's clean, it's neat, and it does reactive out of the box, right? Yeah, we're running out of time now. I guess we can go back to slides. I have 5 minutes more. Nope, not back in the first slides. So yeah, here. So real world applications. So yeah, here Svelte is being used for POS systems in Brazil. There's these 200,000 devices in the wild. The device runs a very old WebKit on extremely memory constrained hardware. They tried like a dozen different kinds of frameworks. None of them can be used because when you press a button, it would respond half a second later. Of course, users will be more likely to press it twice and may end up overcharging the customer. But when they try this belt, it works smoothly. MozLab is a company in Russia that uses Svelte to build applications for smart TVs. Here's what you can notice. POS and smart TVs are all pretty low power devices, right? And this is a trend that is only going to increase. So the new frontier is the embedded web, wearables, Internet of Things, in-car entertainment systems, smart home control panels. All of these things that have displays, they need UIs, and a lot of the time, those interfaces will be built on the web. So what else can Svelte offer? SSR, static site generator, through sappers like Knox or Next.js in React. It's built native on top of native script. So yeah, you can use it Svelte native or Svelte. The way you write Svelte, you can apply that in writing cross-platform. For WebGL apps, Svelte.js/GL. So this is something you can also use when you're writing a WebGL. So let's weigh in the bad parts and the selling points of Svelte. Bad parts. Ecosystem still growing, so don't expect a lot of libraries that you can find example, if you're used to React, there are tons of libraries out there already ready-made. You don't have to reinvent the wheel, but you might find yourself also, writing or recreating some functionalities if you're writing as well. So I guess, but yeah, they're still growing. They just started a few years ago, so that's reasonable. But you know what? Angular, React, and Vue had similar history before. It's just a matter of time. You can start introducing Svelte to your boss or to your managers, and these are what you need to enumerate when talking to them. Selling points, easy to pick up, better performance, write less code, extremely small bundles, reactive out of the box, as you can see in my demo, declarative, transitioning, and animation. So unfortunately, we had enough time. It has a built-in transitioning animation APIs in Svelte, and also state management. Store. If you love writing big applications with a single source of truth, yes, but has that out of the box as well. And last but not least, best for low-powered devices. So references here, you can check this out. Svelte, Zappers, Svelte Native. Yeah, you can also check out Solid.js and Stencil.js. And yeah, this repo here that I did and just wrote, it's also can be found here in Svelte demo in my GitHub. So anyway, for testing testing components, testing library, yeah, you can go to testinglibrary.com. You can also find Svelte testing here there. For chat, if you want to talk with other Svelte developers, there's a Discord channel for Svelte. And for the roll-up, here's Jitter. And if you're curious about jobs in the Svelte world, sveltejobs.dev. And I highly recommend Rich Harris' video, Rethinking Reactivity. And actually, I watched it, I think, 3 times or twice. Because he's really so good at explaining things. Highly recommend that. Yeah, this does not end here. You can ask me a question on Twitter. Yeah, so or even on Slack, I'm logged in. Okay, also thank you again. We're run out of time. Yeah, thank you for listening. I hope you liked Svelte. That was quick, but yeah, we made it to the end, and